Well, I'm happy to be welcoming David Langer on the podcast today. David, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and really appreciate you taking the time out to join us here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Andrew. How about you?
Doing really well. Doing good. I'm excited to have a conversation with you. So before we get into the topic of data literacy and then some other work that you do in your work with TDWI and elsewhere, I'd love to have you give a brief background on yourself and your expertise so that the audience can get to know you a little bit better.
Sure. So I've been in the tech industry for 25, 26 years now. I got my started back in the day as a software engineer, coder. I've been coding most of my life ever since I was about 12 on a Commodore 64. So a dyed-in-the-wool geek from way back. And about 12, 13 years ago now, I moved out of software engineering and more into analytics, starting with traditional data warehousing and business intelligence, and then over time moving into more and more analytics, up to and including advanced analytics. So things like machine learning, cluster analysis, all that kind of good stuff. These days, I'm an independent consultant and educator. I partner a lot with TDWI. I have clients, for example, in the insurance industry, and I help them plan and organize and execute their data literacy programs. And I also perform analytical consulting. So, for example, I will build and deploy production machine learning models for clients and essentially everything in between. So I have a lot of experience in the data field, and I do come at it from a particular technical background, being a former software engineer. But that being said, I have a lot of love for Microsoft Excel. So I am not a hater on Microsoft Excel.
Well, I was planning on asking you about that here in the coming questions that I have for you, but you did touch on data literacy there, and it seems like a lot of your work as an instructor and consultant is focused on data literacy. Where did that interest start in that topic?
Yeah, well, it came from working in the trenches, the analytics trenches. I have had the opportunity to transition out of technical roles, IT, that sort of thing, in my analytics work and work directly with business decision makers, business leaders, executives, that sort of thing. And over time, what I learned in the trenches working with those kinds of folks is that data literacy matters more than anything else. Like a lot of folks back in the day when data science got hot, I got really attracted to the advanced analytics end of things because that's the cool stuff, right? But then what I found was that's not actually where most of the problems lie for most organizations. The fundamentals is where the problems are. Decisions are not being made using data, they're being made using experience and gut instinct alone. And in this day and age, it's just not enough. And as charming as I can be as an analytics professional, as persuasive as maybe I could be, what I found was time and time and again, I was not having as much impact changing the course of the organization using data as I could, mainly because of a lack of data literacy. So I got involved in it simply because I got this point of like, I got tired of not being as successful as I could be. And I figured, let's help all the analytical peeps out there be more successful.
Well, that's great. And I'm assuming you have no shortage of need for your type of skill set when it comes to helping organizations out with data literacy. As more and more organizations, we're seeing, at least on the TDWI side, a huge need for more people to be data literate within every single organization. So that kind of leads me to my next point here, which is when you're talking with these organizations, where do you have, as far as your advice, where do you have them starting on this journey?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Andrew. And this is one of the points that I've raised in many talks at various TDWI events, executive summits, that sort of thing. And really, my own experiences, as I alluded to earlier, have led me to the inescapable conclusion that data literacy has to start with leaders, right? Data literacy just isn't for rank and file people. It's for the entire organization, first and foremost, starting with leaders. So I usually propose this as a litmus test when I start talking to organizations. When they ping me and they're like, hey, can we talk about planning a data literacy program for our organization? I say, okay, what is your leader's commitment to it? Is your organization willing to send your leaders to data literacy training managers, executives, the C-suite, all of them. And if the answer is no, which oftentimes that's the response I get, quite frankly,
Hmm.
then I say, look, that probably tells you everything that you need to know, because data literacy is very much a cultural transformation, right? So if your leaders aren't all in on it, then there's there's almost no point in getting started, to be quite frank, because what'll end up happening is you can invest in training programs and new tools and technologies for folks in the organization, try to get them excited about data literacy. But when they look up and they see their managers not exhibiting that mindset, that data literacy mindset, those data literacy behaviors, they're just going to revert to business as usual. So it's got to start first.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious if you see some pushback from those high level individuals based on some of the newer technology that's come out for like the no code, low code type of things, where they go, well, do I really need data literacy if these things are making it easier for me to understand without having that knowledge?
Yes, absolutely. And it's gotten even further than that with generative AI and
Right.
chat. Yeah, you knew I had to say chat GPT at some point, right? I mean, it's all the rage these days.
Hmm.
And that technology, don't get me wrong, generative models have long-term promise without a doubt. But we have to remember that right now, as of this point in time, 80 to 90% of advanced analytics initiatives fail. Machine learning and AI initiatives have fail. Generative AI is just another form of machine learning and advanced analytics. So it's going to be subject to the same level of failures. And code and no code solutions are nothing new, despite what people might think. They've been
Hmm.
around a long time. Trust me, I've been in the biz for approaching 30 years now. So
Uh-huh.
all of those things are great and they are certainly powerful and they are useful tools, but they are not a replacement for having these data literacy concepts permeated throughout the organization. There's no substitute for that, because what it does is it allows the organization to exhibit this mindset each and every day, independent of the tool. It's a way of thinking, it's a way of behaving and acting. So yes, I get questions about that a lot. And I say, yeah, you know what? Actually, there's no substitute for a data literate marketing manager using Excel and making data-driven decisions. No substitute for that, at least not at this point anyway.
Totally. And we continue to see the need for data literacy on our end at TDWI. We have, plenty of courses and seminars and webinars all about how to make that cultural shift within an organization. And it's still of the utmost importance. So you did mention Excel there, and I
I
will
did.
go ahead and ask the question, with your background in software engineering, you still, are an evangelist for Microsoft Excel. How is that in your mind related to data literacy?
Yeah, it's a good question. And sometimes I do get some pushback. I get some haters. They're like, Dave, why aren't you talking about Python or R or something? What are you talking about Excel for? What it's blasphemy. What are you doing? And the answer is quite simple. If you think about data literacy, you think about tooling, because you have to have some tooling to work with the data, right? The days are gone where people are using pencil and paper to analyze data. It's not the 1970s anymore. So, okay, what tool should we use? Well, we should use a tool that has wide scale adoption. And the estimates are there's anywhere between 700 and 750 million Excel users worldwide.
Wow.
So you can't argue with a number like that. Quite frankly, Excel makes the world go round. It just does. So you might as well start by focusing on a tool that people already know and are comfortable with, rather than saying, oh, you want to be data literate? No, you're going to have to learn how to code in Python. That's just not going to happen. You're going to stack the odds in your favor if you concentrate on Excel first and foremost. So it's about scale first and foremost, right? Which should make sense. If you want to change the world, got to go with scale. Second of all, what most people don't realize is that Microsoft Excel is an exceedingly powerful analytical tool. Microsoft has been investing in it for decades now, and it has a lot of capabilities. For example, if with the right techniques, some professionals might find that they don't need anything else other than Microsoft Excel to do all the analyses that could help them become truly data driven. And here's something that's even more interesting, by the way. You can actually build predictive models in Microsoft Excel. And these predictive models are of the exact same quality. They come up with the same exact results as our or Python.
Wow.
Most people don't know that, but you can do it. So it is an exceedingly powerful tool. And here's the thing, once you get everyone up and running with Excel using these tools, predictive models, data literacy, all that kind of stuff, if they want to scale beyond Excel, no problem. We can take their knowledge of Excel, for example, and easily move them into R. That's a pretty easy transition, for example. And then the whole world of all the advanced analytics possibilities opens up. So it's a great, great gateway to wherever they need to go.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, I know that Microsoft's made a relatively large investment in, Chat GPT specifically, and I'm assuming there's going to be some integrations with that in Excel. So why not even, begin the journey there? And who knows, in the next few months or years, it could even be, like you're saying, it could be the source of where people go for this kind of analytics.
Right. I mean, you could imagine something like, hey, Chat GPT, pivot my Excel table this way and tell me what's interesting about it. That that will eventually happen. Now, right now, there are some concerns. You're probably as aware as I am, Andrew, of all these posts and articles and that sort of thing, saying essentially, stop loading your proprietary data into Chat GPT because OpenAI is not, they're keeping that data. So make
Hmm.
sure that you're actually implementing all of your data privacy and data security guidelines first before you start using the tech. We'll get there eventually, right? This sandbox kind of environment where you can safely use your proprietary data with Chat GPT, but we're not quite there yet, but it'll happen. It'll happen, I'm pretty
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah, and so I know that you do a lot more work outside of just the data literacy realm, and especially with TDWI. So I'll pivot a little bit, if you will, allow for it. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the advanced analytics topics that you're going to be covering in TDWI Nashville, which is coming up, the next couple days here. And I know you're also going to be doing some work for us in other, seminars and other events down the line. So would you take us through a little bit of what people can expect, in TDWI Nashville and beyond?
Yeah. So at the time of this recording, I'll be flying out on 2 days on a Saturday,
Uh-huh.
head out to TDWI Nashville, where I'll be teaching 5 days. So I'll be teaching 5 individual hands-on courses. I focus a lot on not only data literacy, but also more advanced analytics topics. So, for example, I will be teaching a course on visual data analysis. I will be teaching a course on machine learning, uh, a course on how you wrangle data, prepare data, make your data optimal for feeding into machine learning algorithms. I'll be teaching a course on cluster analysis and also a course on text analytics. And those are all hands-on. In total, those 5 courses have 23 hands-on labs.
Wow.
So I'm very much a doer, coming from that software engineering background, right? It's like,
Sure.
okay, we're going to talk a little about theory and let's write some code. That's just the way, that's just the way I roll. In Nashville, those courses are divided between R and Python. I'm going to be teaching all of those same topics, for example, in August at TDWI San Diego, but all of those courses are going to be taught in Python, which
Got
is
it.
going to be something new for TDWI. We have a lot of requests for Python. We have a lot of
Hmm.
folks that are interested in Python. So we're going to offer all those courses in Python. So it's going to be like you can think of it almost like a data science jumpstart kind of opportunity for folks that attend San Diego.
Absolutely. And I know those folks that are going to be in attendance in Nashville will gain a lot from it. Same to those that have the opportunity to visit you in San Diego as well. So kind of drilling down further on the advanced analytics topic, what advice, if any, do you have for organizations on how to get started with advanced analytics?
Yeah. So I've done some talks uh, for TDWI in the past on this topic, and I'm going to be doing some this year as well. I'll be doing a talk at the Executive Summit at TDWI San Diego related to this topic, as well as a virtual seminar in July as well. Um, Virtual summit, excuse me, not seminar, virtual
No
summit in
worries.
July. Uh, and my message is always the same. And this is based on, once again, my experience in the trenches as a consultant, as well as as an employee before I became a solo practitioner. First and foremost, if you're getting started with advanced analytics, do not rush to production solutions. Okay. Everybody wants to do the really cool thing of like building a predictive model and putting it in production and automating a process somehow. And there's value in that. Don't get me wrong. I do it for my clients. There's absolute value in that. However, that is like the deep end of the pool, as it were, right? If I can use
Yeah.
that metaphor.
Yeah.
So you want to wade in, right? You just don't want to like toss somebody at the deep end of the pool and hope they learn to swim. No, not a good idea. So what you should do is dial it back a little bit and think of it like this. Advanced analytics techniques, things like linear regression, logistic regression, predictive models in general, were used for analyzing data long before they were production solutions. So thinking of it that way, a great way to start getting your feet wet without diving into the deep end is to start using these techniques to analyze data and improve processes, because predictive models can provide you with a ton of insight that you didn't have before about a particular process, about a particular thing going on in your business. And you can use those insights, communicate the results of those insights to the business decision makers, and help them use those insights to drive process changes that have economic benefit to your organization. And that's a great way to get started. Because if you focus on production first and foremost, there's a whole technological infrastructure that you need. There's software engineering practices that you need to develop on top of just learning how to actually build useful predictive models. That alone is actually kind of difficult. So you might as well just focus on that first.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. The analogy is too easy. I mean, the deep end is something you only want to wade into if you know how to swim. I mean, that just, I think that's so apropos of the moment. And a lot of these organizations are, willing to, too many times, I think, try to swim before they know how to doggy paddle, if you will,
Or,
to
right.
compound that.
You need those little like, inflatable
The
floaties that you
floaties,
put
yeah.
on your arms, that kind of thing, right? That's what you really need.
Um,
And another benefit, by the way, sorry
yeah,
to interrupt, but another benefit of the approach too is that of this approach is that you don't necessarily have to hire a whole team of data scientists, right? This is where like TDWI comes into play, right? So most of the folks that come to my classes at TDWI usually come from, data warehousing, business intelligence, data and, data analytics types of teams, but they're not necessarily the full-blown proverbial data scientist. And if you start with this idea of predictive analytics, advanced analytics as a data analysis technique, you can say, look, I can upskill my BI team, for example, and they can start wading in with those little floaties on their arms. So you
yeah,
don't have to hire a whole data science team. It's a great win-win kind of strategy.
absolutely. Well, David, yeah, I know that you just gave a great teaser for all those that are going to be potentially seeing you in Nashville and San Diego. And I don't want to steal the thunder from all of the heavy lifting that they're going to be able to do when they actually do get to see you. But I would like to end here with a way for people to reach out if they're interested in engaging with this, conversations with you down the road on, data literacy or advanced analytics topics. So what's the best way for those folks to reach out if they're interested?
Yeah, so I'm big on LinkedIn. So just send me a connection request with a note saying, hey, I heard you on the podcast with Andrew. Can we connect? So that's one way. Another way is you can visit my website, daveondata.com, and there's a contact page, and you can send me an email. We can start a conversation that way.
Perfect. All right. Well, Dave, I'll let you go here. Looking forward to talking with you again down the road. I would love to get one more episode in with you before San Diego, so we can dive a little deeper into what you're going to be covering there as well. But really appreciate the time today, and good luck to you on your travels and in Nashville as well.
Thank you, Andrew. And I would love to be on before TWI San Diego if possible.
Perfect.